actually normally sits there.
Am I in my assigned seat, Michael? Is that permission?
Am I supposed to? Oh, okay, I was gonna say, if we do, I need to move.
Where you want to. Oh, my gosh. I have to go buy a new refrigerator. Because they called my repair guy and he's like, oh, it's $900 to replace the compressor. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, good.
Well, is that,
Right.
could have multiple reasons why it might be like that, but I don't know. Like a new pen.
That much work.
I've got one in my garage. I bet when
Very.
I got it, it was
This has got to be a metaphor for how my life is going.
It's just a creative day.
never had a problem. He's probably 35 years old, and it's just.
We've got one in our basement.
Did we ever figure out
It's gotta be at least
the
20 years old.
public health notice and
Runs like a charm.
where they got the addresses?
Thank goodness.
From CNS.
CMS. Did
They
Alexa
changed it
actually
this
send
year.
out the letter?
Yeah.
I don't know that.
They
We
told me,
put it on
guys, to stay away from
Okay.
those Samsung.
But we did reach
all
out to
those
CMS to say how,
back fridges. He said, just stay away from
what was the process. My understanding.
Your money.
They placed it
But,
on
Yay.
under 16. No, they changed it.
Okay.
Finishing up with the tip coat. No,
Yeah, tell
that
me.
time of year.
He just said there.
I'm right at the tail end of it, but.
So do we have anyone on the call?
Yeah, any of those. Any of those are fine. Stay away from those. Because, you know, the health of your lungs is important.
Great, so let's do a roll call. Do we have anyone on the phone that is joining us?
Good morning, this
Tina.
is Mark with Aetna.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
I'm Tina with WMI.
Hi, Tina. Strange to have you on the phone, Tina.
Yeah, I know.
Anyone else on the phone? All right, thank you much for joining us. Any items before we move to the approval of the minutes? Anything? All right, so if you have a chance to review the minutes, open to a motion to approve.
I will motion.
Thank you, Tina. Do I have a second?
And I'll second it.
John, thank you. All in favor, vote aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any? Looks like it's unanimous. Thank you, Michael, for your great work on that. So, pending rules.
And we have three to talk about. One new rule is the Rule 590-276, and it is a record retention for foreign, alien, commercially domiciled, foreign title, and foreign fraternals.
I'd like you to say that again twice fast.
And the new rule, the purpose of the rule is to notify foreign, alien, commercially domiciled, and foreign fraternal insurers that they must keep records and reports for 3 years, plus the current year, for review by the Utah Insurance Department as needed. It also notifies all title insurers, foreign and domestic, that they must keep records for 15 years per 31A-2110. I have two amendments. Amendment is to R 590-266-1. And the only change in that rule is to remove the reference to 31A-3116 because it was repealed in House Bill 336, which is the Health Reform Amendment. That was during 2017 legislation that was repealed. However, the Insurance Department still has rulemaking authority for the provisions of this rule, which have been reflected in the changes. And second amendment is to R 590-271-1. And that amendment, it removes reference to 31A-22613.5, which was repealed in House Bill 336, Health Reform Amendment again. And that was during the 2017 general legislation, and the department still has rulemaking authority for the provisions of the rule. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you very much, Tina. In particular, any questions on those? We appreciate the opportunity to review those, and we'll discuss those in our Friday board meeting and get back to you if we have any concerns. So, any update on exchange enrollment?
So, for week ending December 2nd, Utah had approximately 89,000 persons who had selected a plan on healthcare.gov. And hot off the press, about a half hour ago, I got the updates for the week ending December 9th, and it's up to 106,000.
How does that compare to last year? Do you know offhand?
I do not have a week-to-week comparison on those numbers. So we did have a total enrollment at the end of open enrollment for 2017 of 176,000, I think, for 2017. So, well on our way. Not going to make it maybe by Friday to hit that same number, but I'm also not necessarily expecting the same number, because hopefully those people who aren't receiving a subsidy, or at least a significant subsidy, are going and finding plans off exchange. We won't know how many people did that until we're able to get an enrollment picture after the first of the year. So the department will plan on doing that to make sure overall how many insureds are still in the individual market after the end of open enrollment.
Would I be correct that these numbers reflect both renewals and new people entering the marketplace?
Yes.
Okay.
The numbers we get from CMS do not break it down.
If this, for the auto re-enrollment, they get the notice on the 15th of December that they were auto re-enrolled?
They've already received a notification that they're being auto-enrolled. What they'll receive December 15th, if they haven't made a plan selection, I'm not sure what type of notification. CMS hasn't been playing by their own rules, so I don't know what they'll do.
Because I was, for some reason, I had in my head the date of December 15th was the date that some notification went to the people that were auto-enrolled. And if they were going to make a change, it would be already too late for them to make a change.
Yeah, they actually sent that notice early.
They did send it early. Okay. Well, that makes sense. I'm glad they did.
But they still have special enrollment.
Okay.
Any follow-up questions? We appreciate that report. Certainly been a interesting political year with last night's Alabama election. It could certainly have an impact on health insurance and whether or not federally there'll be changes. So, as usual, we tightened up our seatbelt and we hold on.
I was watching that, wondering and looking at the numbers, and here we go again, right?
Great. Any comments from the insurance department on the health of the individual health insurance market beyond the enrollment numbers that you could share with us?
Well, Dr. Holly, who prepares our annual accident and health report, is in the finishing stages of the 2016 data that will hopefully be out by the end of the year. Each year since 2014, the market has had slight improvement, and for 2016, that happened again. While in the individual market, our insurers are still losing money consistently. But, you know, we point that out in the report and the problems with that consistent loss and how that's not going to work long-term and what insurers need to do to move forward with making those changes, which the department supports with rate increases. At least it's good news that the losses are shrinking. You know, the individual market doesn't ever seem to have any great. I do know that there is a lot of chatter with the legislature on looking at a 1332 waiver, but the federal government's comments on funding for those waivers has definitely been a little yo-yo effect. And the most recent one I heard is that that funding would only be available now for 2 years. So that might be something that comes up in the session, this next session in 18. Pay attention, watch for it. I don't have any information on any specifics of the language that might be there. I just know that there is discussion out there on how it might work well for the Utah market.
Great.
Angie, follow up on that. Does the department have a position on any bill drafts that are out related to the waiver or in general on the topic?
So, not at this time. We haven't seen a bill draft. You know, and I think I've said before, and the commissioner has also, that you know, we're supportive if we can find something that works well for Utah's market. But there's also a lot of pitfalls that can happen with the 1332 waivers. The biggest challenge, I think, being is what's the cost to the state? And what guarantees come from the federal government with those waivers? Unfortunately, we've seen the federal government sell our insurers several times. so we don't want to be put in another one of those positions again.
Remind me, what's the 1332 waiver?
So it allows states to come up with state-specific reforms that help control the cost of insurance. But you can't waive things such as dependent age or no lifetime limits, the rating structure. Those same requirements still stay in place. And the most famous one, I would say, is Alaska, and they set up a reinsurance pool. But they had a unique scenario too. They had one insurer in the market. That insurer was going to leave the market, leaving the state bare. And so they came up with this reinsurance pool. It also came along with a significant amount of state funding that I don't necessarily see our legislature committing to. So $55 million a year. But they also had no insurers to be offering coverage. So Idaho is coming up with a 13th waiver, and theirs is being tied in with their Medicaid program. I don't have enough information. I can't really speak well to their waiver, but I am interested to see when it comes out what it looks like, because it does seem very innovative and unique to what other states have done. But the most common that have been proposed is a reinsurance pool.
It's a waiver from the federal requirements under the ASA.
There's
Or is it some of them?
It's not necessarily they use the term waiver, but it's not necessarily a waiver from a particular requirement. But what they're doing is, if the state can show that there's cost savings by instituting such as a reinsurance program, the money that they are able to save the federal government in reduced premiums, the federal government promises to push that money back to the state. So because of the advanced premium tax credits. So if you lower your premium, you lower the federal government's share of advanced premium tax credits. And so instead of the federal government keeping that, they say that they're going to pass it back to the state to help fund a reinsurance pool or whatever the mechanism is.
So it might be referred to as an innovation grant. We think we know a better way to do it, save everybody money, rather than saying, please waive this particular requirement. Would that be fair?
I think that's a great description.
Additional questions? So I know that there was a lot of media coverage over premiums going up and people being assigned to a particular plan theoretically. It's going to be an interesting session to see what kind of legislative interest that has generated and what the constituents are. Anecdotally, I've run across a couple of people that are actually paying less in 2018 because their APTC went up so much that the CSR's funding is probably going to be irrelevant to the companies that are dealing with them. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic. But those that are making too much to get any kind of APTC, they're the ones that are bearing the brunt of the premium rate increase.
Right. That's where we're hoping that if they were on healthcare.gov, that those people are shopping off exchange.
Or looking for a bronze plan instead of silver.
Yes. But, we're trying to send out the consistent message that this year, as I always say, that this year even more so important, you need to shop for a new plan. We did speak with Desert News yesterday. The department did send out a press release. So hopefully we can get some media coverage in these last few days.
Great. Any further follow-up on number 5? Anything on the phone?
Jake, did you have anything to add on the health insurance?
No.
Great. So number 6, there was a question raised about the essential health benefit and it missing from the 2017 insurance recodification bill. Is this a concern that you were already aware of, or I'm not sure who in our membership brought up the issue, but
Yeah, so when the EHB language, or I should say, when we moved the HMO and the PPO type provisions into the managed care chapter, chapter 45, the essential health benefit section got refilled. And I don't think that was intentional on anyone's part. And so the department has actually put in our 2018 cleanup bill, we've reinstated that provision, updated a little bit because of the time that has elapsed to account that we've already updated the EHB plan. And so you'll see that in our cleanup bill.
I think the commissioner made mention of that when he discussed the legislation. I think he said that it was unintentionally removed and they were just going to put it in again.
Right.
So
We didn't want it to, I know the legislature, it's very important for them to feel that they have the ability to direct the commissioner on what our essential health benefit package is, which is different than what's in the Affordable Care Act, which directs the commissioner himself to make that election. And so, we felt strongly we needed to reinstate what the legislature's original intention was, and what that was incorporating their direction to the commissioner of what your essential health benefit package is.
there is, I don't know how we missed that in the 1,200 page. I just don't know how we missed that.
I assigned Kelly to review that. It's his fault.
It is my fault.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because I was really feeling like it was my fault.
We distributed that among all our companies, and I thought, how did we miss the essential health benefit plan? And I'm sure, and the commissioner was saying the same thing, but.
Yeah.
Just to see if anybody would catch
fingers.
it, really. It was just, wondering if we took this out, what would happen?
Yeah, it was just a little one-line
Oh, I
retail.
see.
No, I'm sorry.
Are you guys awake?
It's Heidi's fault.
Away with.
Let's do this little tricky thing.
Yeah, and all those refills, it just went through the laundry list and didn't catch it. When you don't see the actual language in a strikeout scenario, I think that's how it happened.
That's how it happened. Yeah, I'm sure.
We're still using the same benchmark select health plan, I assume.
It's not a select health plan, but we are using the same PHP benchmark plan.
PEHP, pardon. I'm out of date as
So,
usual.
Yeah, we
So
are.
you're not proposing any addition or deletions of essential health benefits?
No, it really
Just
does.
going to reinstate the language.
Yeah, we had to tweak it a little bit based on language that the drafting attorney felt comfortable with, and still trying to keep the intent of the language. It was an interesting way to try and rewrite what was in there, because it's something that happened in the past, but we don't want to state what it is because we still want to give the legislature that opportunity to direct as it changes in the future. So take a look at the language, but it should not have changed anything that we do today.
So what would happen in the interim? I'm curious. The company did provide essential benefits during this period of time that's in the window.
So we still have some general rulemaking authority in Chapter 2, and so, such as that, one of the rules that was being revised that Nancy went over was the essential health benefit rule. For rule purposes, I had to remove the reference to the repealed section because it no longer existed, but we had two sections in there. One was our general ACA authority that we can enact a rule after we report to the legislature, which we had already done. So I left that section in. We still have the authority of that rule. I don't think that there can be any games to be played during this interim period, but we wanted to make sure there was solid direction in the law for the rule.
Good point on the rule.
With the language on the essential health benefits, is it anticipated that there will be any changes if the 2019 notice of payment and benefit parameters goes through.
So the chairs of the Health Reform Task Force are very aware of that, and at least at this point, they have not made any comments that they intend to change that selection. But we will follow up as that finalizes.
Do you want it changed?
Just if someone asks down the road what potential status could be in Utah, that will finalize. And answer now is probably best.
Right. And I suspect that will get discussed in a very timely manner.
And I think it's still unclear how any state would use the flexibility that's been given on the EHB changes so far. I don't think anybody really knows how you would switch out this EHB for Utah with this one from Nevada and just put it in. I'm not sure. I don't know. At this point, I don't think any of it makes sense to do, but maybe down the road. I still want to get rid of dental from the EHBs. So if we have that flexibility, I'm going to push for that. You can put that on the record.
Well, and comments have been submitted for that.
Yeah. But so far,
we'll see what they do.
But so far, like Kelly, you mentioned that have we?
Michael got it.
And there was a disclaimer before that. Did you want to recap that?
Oh yeah, I could put the disclaimer. This is Jake's opinion and not the opinion of the department or of the commissioner.
Jake already has no.
That's right. My brother's a dentist, so was my grandpa and my uncles. I'm covered.
So now you're declaring a conflict of interest in the.
We've got that on record.
I do have that on record. But you can't willy-nilly go in right now. Like you mentioned, are we going to do anything with the EHB benefits to remove or include somebody? You can't. I don't think you can just take out an EHB benefit at this point. You still have to cover all 10 EHB benefits. Right. So to me, so far, it's just easier to stick with what we've got. I do like the idea of being able to match. So the PEHP plan that we're doing is the 2013 PEHP plan before some of the EHB benefits were included in it. So it's so we're already modifying it a little bit. It'd be nice to maybe use a plan that's already EHB up to date, but we haven't. I don't think.
I think the greatest change you'd see is probably moving to PEHP's plan year 17 plan, which is dated 16.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's turn to Guarantee Association Work Group, and we have hot news from NEIC. So let's cover that first, and then we'll come back to our local discussions.
Well, I don't know how hot of news it is. I was asked recently to present the work of the NEIC's Guarantee Model Act Working Group and the progress of the NEIC's Model Act at a recent INQUEL meeting in Phoenix on November 17th. I was part of a really exciting panel. There was somebody there from AHIP, and then I followed two actuaries that explained what went wrong with long-term care. I actually started out my piece of this presentation, which I'll go through very quickly, by telling a quick actuary joke. So there's an actuary, a company marketing person, and a company attorney driving down the highway in a town, in a foreign town, to an appointment. Let's say at the insurance department. The company marketing professional had their foot on the gas pedal. Company attorney had her foot on the brake, and the actuary was looking out the rear window giving directions. So I'm not going to bore you with what the State Guarantee Association is. Again, this presentation was more geared to a legislative audience. But as we all know, there are two guarantee associations in the state of Utah, one for the property and casualty insurers and one for the life and health insurers. In Utah, the HMOs are not members of the Health and Life Guarantee Association. There are a handful of states in which they are members, Wyoming and Idaho. Our neighbors have HMOs in their guarantee associations. As the working group, as we went through our work, which took a long time, a lot of meetings, we did hear from Wyoming, who had an insolvency of an HMO, and they said that their system worked just fine. So the assessments are applied.
I'm sorry, Brett, Colorado, I think Colorado includes HMOs in their guarantee.
Mark may know.
Colorado does not include HMOs.
Yeah, I didn't think they did. It's because this model really, the genesis of it was the potential collapse of the Colorado Guarantee Association, because their guarantee association was looking at not only the collapse of their co-op, which I believe was a member, but then the Penn Treaty assessment that we're all dealing with right now. And so they had real concerns about the assessment capacity. This slide kind of just illustrates where the long-term care insurance is in the different accounts maintained by the GA. And as you can see, long-term care is over in the health insurance bucket. These are NOGA numbers, so the National Association of Health and Life Guarantee Association. They estimate the national capacity at $5 billion, and in Utah, we estimated about $32 million. This, I think, is the most powerful slide, and those of you that have participated in the Utah Legislature's working group, this is not a new slide to you, but any of you that haven't seen this before, you'll notice that the assessment, oh, I didn't realize this was so, yeah, so interactive. So you see who pays the long-term care, who's receiving the premium, and the long-term care here is yellow, and here who pays the assessment for an insolvency of a long-term care assessment or a long-term care company of health plans. So it's wildly disproportionate. These are numbers that are slightly different based on Utah-specific numbers as opposed to national numbers, which is what the previous slide was. Again, there the proportionality is significantly different. This graph shows that 76% of Utah premiums are excluded from long-term care assessments. So that means the health carriers are going to be hit for insolvencies of long-term care companies. So the working group went through a number of different options. We actually ended up with kind of a hybrid of option 3 and option 1 to include HMOs in the Life and Health Guarantee Association and aggregate the insurance accounts for purposes of making Class B assessments. Class B assessments are assessments to pay claims, as opposed to Class A assessments, which are for administrative expenses of the Guarantee Association. I'm not going to go into these alternative. So here are the major changes, and I'm just going to go really hit to the what I think are the big items, and they're here at the end. So we remove a $300 cap on Class A assessments so that there can be, if they need more, I guess, money for administrative expenses, that they have that capability. This is the big one. The second one here that's in italics, assessments from long-term care insurance insolvencies would be shared. The life account using a 50-50 split. So 50% of the assessment for long-term care failure would be paid by health companies under the NEIC model, and 50% would be paid by life companies under the NEIC model. And when I finish here, I know those of you that participated know that in Utah they're talking about some 75-25 and some other options.
life companies have agreed to that, right? My
Across the board.
understanding,
Yeah,
across the board, the life companies.
Well, I should say the ACLI and its members have agreed to it. There may be individual life insurers, just like there are individual health insurers and HMOs that have not agreed to it.
Right.
I think it's important to note that during the many drafting sessions, Kiser Permanente was outspoken in their opposition to being included at all in the health account, and two, to the 50-50 split. And so
because they're an HMO?
Yeah, it's not only because they're an HMO, but they're an HMO, for lack of a more technical term, an old school HMO. They have the whole harmless provision, where you're now in the hospital, and they do a capitation, and according to Tangi and the commissioner's health professionals, we don't have anything that looks like Kiser in Utah. Kiser is active in 8 states, and in those states, they're going to have to deal with this anomaly. There's another anomaly in Illinois. They have a separate HMO guarantee association.
Hey, Brett, so, and you and I were talking about this earlier, but so even the 50-50 split, long-term care premium would still be part of the health account. They're not talking about moving long-term care premium to the life.
No.
Okay.
They're still being a health account. So, should have had Jake left, because this is more of an actuary question, that Art Dummer, who's been engaged by the Utah Life and Health Guarantee Association, is those of you who are getting his spreadsheets, I'm overwhelmed by them. But I understand that he feels like he needs to do 4 different calculations. The health insurers portion of the life account, the life insurers portion of the health account, the life insurers portion of the long-term care assessment, and health insurers portion of long-term care assessment to arrive at an assessment on an individual company basis.
Many did them with the different splits.
Yeah, when I at one point, I was trying to read those emails and open those attachments as they came in, and I gave up, having faith that Art would explain in that meeting. So some of these steps, I'm pleased to report, are already done. So the model was exposed for 30 days by the Receivership Model Law Working Group. That ended at the end of October. Comments were due by the end of November. We had a joint call with our parent Receivership Insurance Task Force on November 29th. The model law passed unanimously. We really didn't have much opposition there, other than Kiser's kind of normal mantra. Because based on that adoption, it moved to the NEIC's E Committee. So at the national meeting last week, the E Committee met. They heard this model law. Again, Kiser Permanente spoke out against it, but many different representatives and company groups spoke in favor of it at the E Committee, and it passed unanimously out of the E Committee. The chair of the E Committee is the NEIC's president-elect, the superintendent of Maine, and he indicated that he would get leadership to convene a special NEIC plenary phone call in order to finally approve the model. That's not expected to happen until at least next year, first of next year. So that's where it's at. Now, for all the Utah wrinkles.
So as you correctly said, Brett, there was a lack of consensus over the 50-50 versus some other split at the last meeting. Is that accurate?
Correct.
There was consensus that HMOs needed to go into a guarantee, but the split was still in dispute. Is that accurate?
Right. And it's just a political, I think, Representative Dunnigan, you have the policy, and then you have the political implications of the policy. And of course, it's no secret in this room that there's the 800-pound gorilla is Intermountain Healthcare, and they're not in the Guaranteed Association. And they're saying, if we're coming into the Guarantee Association, we want the proportion of our liability to be more reflective of the cost, that first sheet that you said, which is closer to 75%. So they're saying if we come in, we want it to be 75, 25, and then you've got Regents that said we're closer aligned with that than we are the 50-50. So you got 80% of the marketplace that's saying if you do this, we want it to be more reflective of that sheet. And so politically, what the representative is thinking is if I don't move in that direction, this is DOA. I mean, it's not going to go anyplace. And so that's where he's leaning. And because I would politically, having been involved in the legislature a little bit, politically, I would say that your two strongest lobbyists in this area are Intermountain and Regents. So I think he's acquiescing to the fact that if he wants, if consumers are going to be benefited by an HMO, which everybody is in agreement to at the table, the work group is all saying they ought to be benefited, then he's saying if I'm going to move in that direction, this is the only way that I can move in that direction, and we'll let the games play out at the legislature and see where we end up. I think they're starting at 75%. I think through the gravitation process, as it filters through the legislature, I think you'll see some compromising from that. You'll see that probably drop from 75% to be more reflective of what you see there. But they don't want to start at 50-50, and I'm not sure I would want to start. Uhia's position has been simple on this. Our position has been we want HMOs in the Guaranteed Association. At what level? We're across. I mean, our companies are across the board there. They're mixed. So we're not going to venture in and say this is what the level should be, but we're firmly committed that the citizens of the state of Utah, the consumers in this area, ought to be protected if there's a similar situation to Arches. That's been our position.
Mark, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think the summary is, yeah, I mean, everybody knows that as a national player has been heavily involved in supporting the NAIC model, the 50-50 split and including HMOs. I am curious, I just don't know the political landscape well enough to know how life insurers react should Representative Dunnigan move in the direction of a 75-25. Obviously, the ACLI approval of that 50-50 split, I'm assuming goes right out the window, but I just am not sure how that plays out over the next couple months.
I don't think Ted Lewis is the person that's kind of been speaking for them, and I don't think they're going to support the 75-25. He's basically said they're at the table at 50-50. That's where they are, and that's what they would like to see. So there is going to be, I mean, this is not going to be a simple piece of legislation. And I think what Representative Dunnigan has taken into consideration is, if I've got a chance of passing this, where do I want to start? And who do I want on my side advocating it? And I think that's what he's decided. I think he's made again, he has not shared this with me. This is, to do Jake's disclaimer, this is Kelly in his background, but I think his political background, but I think Representative Dunnigan has come to, if I'm going to go into the legislature battling this, do I want Intermountain and Regents advocating it, or do I want them opposing it versus the life agents? And I think he said, I want the health component on my side, and I'll take my chances with the life.
Do you think, will there be a bill in this session? Will the model be ready in time for a bill?
The model is cooked. I mean, it just hasn't been gotten its final approval at the commissioner level, but for all intents and purposes, it's done. And so that was something that was important to Utah as a member of that working group. And every time that looked like the drafting group was going to slow down, we were the ones pounding our fists saying, okay, what do we need to do to get this done? Because it looks like it's moving to Utah. We would rather have a model to work off than to do our own thing and then maybe have to come back and change it. I will add that my sense, and from talking to ACLI leadership, is that their members have approved throwing quite a bit of resources at this bill, getting it passed throughout the state. They testified as such, and I've had other conversations with them. I think you'll see them come in and hire other lobbyists because Ted Lewis is a kind of a tenuous position as the ACLI spokesperson, lobbyist, and the guarantees, the person that runs the Guarantee Association. So I think if the ACLI is smart and wants a louder voice, they will reach out and have something that doesn't have that, those ethic, well, not, Ted has been very ethical, but someone would have a louder voice.
Right. So.
Because I don't think the ACLI will agree to it, the split.
Yeah. This bill could aptly be named full employment for lobbyists.
There's several in this upcoming session.
I mean, one of the problems with 75-25 split is you'd have, I mean, Utah may be an outlier. If the model is 50-50, then, you know, many, in fact, could it become an accreditation standard?
The accreditation standard with regard to the Guarantee Association Model Acts is that the states need to have the Guarantee Association that needs to have the framework that the model has. So going to a different split would still would not affect accreditation.
But I mean, that's, you know, you'd have a patch, if other states do it, you'd have a patchwork all over the place.
And that was brought up before the working group, and Representative Dunnigan heard that. I mean, Aetna, Cigna, United were pretty clear that they support the model. They were pretty clear. I think Regents and Intermountain pretty clear that they want a 75-25, and then the rest of our companies are mixed where they want to be on this. So.
And our life companies really weren't represented.
No, they weren't. And so but Ted said in that meeting that the life companies had come to the agreement, come to the table at 50-50. And I'm pretty sure that life companies will support the model too. So I'm not predicting what's going to happen over there. I just don't think it's going to hold. The legislation is not going to hold where Representative Dunnigan is presenting it. I don't think it's going to hold at 75%. I think through the negotiation process, that's going to drop someplace between 50 and 75%. I have no crystal ball to know where that is. It may gravitate right to 50%. So I don't know.
We have not seen a draft, have we, from Dunnigan? But you're predicting that it'll come out at 75-25 or something like that?
Those that are in the room, I think he was pretty clear what he was going to do. I mean, if you were in that room, I think he was pretty clear that he was going to go 75-25.
I think it was really clear he was going to run a bill to answer John's question.
Right.
Exactly how it would come up, I think, is subject to intense negotiations. So I'd be surprised if we see this bill before mid-February. It's not the kind of bill that he would probably release right now and invite everyone to start taking pot shots at it.
Yeah.
You know, one of the concerns that the department has with the 75-25 split is the potential for arbitrage. You know, if you've got a company that today is a health company and sees that, you know, they can save a lot of money by converting to an HMO because of the difference in split, that's a possibility as well.
That's not something that came up in that, Brett. That's interesting.
They would. I guess they'd still be held. They'd still be held. And that's more for whether they're in or out with the HMOs. There are a number of different issues: the consistency across the states, the potential for retaliation. I don't know what, you know. We have that today with premium tax.
Seemed like Select said if it was a 50-50, they would fight. Right. That's what they did say that.
It would fight the inclusion?
Yeah, of HMOs in the
I thought they wanted to be.
Well, they're willing to be in.
Not
think.
at 50/50. Yeah, not at
That'd be
50/50.
okay. Let's do 50/50 and exclude HMOs.
So I think the message to UID is that Uhia is not likely to be a major lobbying force, given the fact that, given our members' varying positions, we are likely to be somewhat neutral.
As Uhia.
This is Sunshine. AHIP is in the same boat. We're not neutral. We just are not in a place to take a position.
Thank you, Sunshine. Always good to hear from you. For the lack of sunshine here in Utah, we need you to come back.
I mean, one of the problems I see as well is that historically, long-term care has always been fallen under health insurance. It's rated, it falls under the health insurance section of the code. It's like a disability plan. You have premiums that are rated and approved as if it's a health insurance plan. So, there are all the protections and consumer protections. It's, for all intents and purposes, it is health insurance. And so, to me, the life carriers are giving a lot to say we're willing to do a 50-50 split. Because,
I think the issue is who's selling it. It's not health insurers, right?
I know, that's why life carriers would say, well, even to give 50% is quite a bit. Because this is a health insurance product.
The health insurers aren't.
I understand. So 50-50 makes a lot of sense. Whereas, 75 is working toward, this is not health insurance anymore.
And
This is a life insurance product.
Yeah.
And it's not a life insurance product.
The discussion you're having right here, John, is the discussion of the work group. It's exactly the discussion the work group has been having. The health has been making the cases that Ryan just made. The life has been making the case that you just made. And I think, again, who's going to adjudicate that are the legislators. Because I think Representative Dunningston's going to run his bill, and I think it's going to be based on the discussion he had the other day, I think it's going to be at 75-25, and then the negotiations are going to start. And who knows what will happen, because, you've got the model, you've got the history. And then you're asking lay legislators to weigh in on this, and it's going to be an interesting. We haven't had quite this type of discussion in our industry for a number of years.
I want to just highlight one other thing that the model does. This is something that Colorado was really important to Colorado and was included in their kind of draft. Is the second? Whoops, wrong slide. There is a drafting note that describes a pre-funding concept where policyholders are assessed, $1 or whatever it is, and then that money goes into a fund to pay for future long-term care insolvencies. So that's something that's a concept that's out there as well.
Pre-funding and assessment?
Yeah. So
Similar to banking, right? They use they put into a fund to cover failures, right?
I couldn't speak to the banking, but
Like an FDIC sort of reserve.
our concern at the department level with that type of a fund is, when times are lean, it may have a big target on it, and how do you keep it solely for long-term care insolvency?
Yeah, this is Mark. I can kind of chime in with the governor's office in Colorado is the one who came up with that idea originally. There are some positive accounting issues that work for carriers if you pre-fund it, both on kind of the MLR level and general accounting principle level. So there's some benefit there for carriers who have assets that can pour into a pre-fund. But as you hit the nail on the head, you got to be able to put very robust walls around this fund to make sure the legislature can't otherwise come after it. Because if you have, say, $50 to $100 million sitting there, obviously, legislative bodies would love to tap into that in lean times. So yeah, really captured that issue well.
And isn't the unspoken word behind all this Genworth? I mean, isn't that the concern?
Well, you know,
Genworth.
in the media, you can read that there is a suitor for Genworth. I mean, there are companies, domestic companies that are interested in Genworth, but you know, there are others. I mean, the long-term care was so mispriced for so long, for so many, you know, good reasons that, you know, I don't know that we know what the next one is.
The magnitude of it at Genworth, okay, so think about what's happening with Penn Treaty. It's gonna be like somewhere between a $9 and $12 million assessment.
The latest numbers in Utah came down from 12 to 9, which is good.
So $9 million, so that's huge. The risk corridor assessment for Select Health is $100 million that they lost out on. I mean, some of these numbers are not really. You're taking $9 million and spreading it across all of these people, but then some of these companies, Molina had a $38 million risk assessment that they maybe weren't expecting. I don't know. Even if Genworth went under, yes, that is kind of, I think that's a little bit of the unspoken word, but okay, so Genworth goes under, and the bill is, people are still going to end up paying premiums toward it. So how far can they be under, assuming that people are still paying premiums for this product? What if it's 200 million? Oh no. Well, I mean, we've already had 400 million, 500 million in the ACA here, and it's been absorbed by the health insurance market. Not that I'm saying that you should put the long-term care stuff on the health insurance market, but the numbers here are not as big as what we're seeing in health insurance.
But Genworth is much bigger than Penn Treaty.
Much.
Brett, excellent discussion. Thank you very much for getting this started. Additional questions or follow-up, Ryan?
Was there anything else from the NAIC meeting that worth noting?
The B committee completed its work on the pharmacy insurer acting as a pharmacy benefit manager. It's not a model that Utah has enacted before, but I think it's worth taking a look at and seeing if we need to move forward with.
How about the reverse? Caremark acquiring Aetna?
Mark, do you want to talk to that?
No comment. You'll be hearing from CVS soon.
So yeah, that's definitely an interesting move. So instead of an insurer, we've got, you know, pharmacy group going to an insurer. They are going to start working on some of the accident and health models that we had created, some temporary models when the ACA was initially passed, and now we need to go through and start cleaning those up. So you'll see some of those repealed, but then you'll also see some that are going to be updated again. And then the big question is the short-term limited duration policy. Not to be confused with the short-term, long-term care policies. So that's being worked on also. But for the short-term limited duration health insurance policies, they're considering doing a model on the standards for those types of policies, and kind of waiting to see what the feds do with that also.
When you say the short, long-term care, those are the limited benefit.
Form 792.
Right, and our form, we have a 690. So it's in like a nursing home policy, but it's not long-term care.
It's a short-term, long-term care policy.
Is that what they're calling it though?
Yes.
Well, no, they're officially gonna call it short-term care.
Oh, short-term care.
But the subgroup is short-term, long-term care.
And people get really
Okay,
confused what kind of
all right.
policies you're talking about when you start talking about short-term limited
Don't do
duration
that.
policies.
Please go with short-term care.
So may the record reflect that John is massaging his brow, trying to help it go through.
No, I just want, let's call it short-term care.
So they are still working on short-term care policies.
Mark, did you have a comment?
No, just on the short-term limited duration, the mini-med plan. I know we're probably also waiting for the federal rule to come down. Anything from the department? Are you guys just kind of sitting still till the federal rule comes out under Trump's executive order? Or have you kind of put some thought into any kind of marketing standards or benefit standards that you'd like to see in the state? I just know a lot of companies, at least on a national level, are trying to figure out, is there a role, or is this a product line that we want to get into or not? So I'm just curious if you've had any thoughts.
So depending on what comes out of the federal government, one of the several areas that we had not gotten around to cleaning up in the insurance code is our limited amount of laws around short-term limited duration policies. So there's some very light regulation around them in Chapter 30. And I think the most important being what is a short-term limited duration policy, and it's a policy that is not renewable, and that's one of the big issues with the federal government. And it can only be in effect for under 364 days. So depending on where they move, we still have Utah law in place that would need to be complied with.
So could they just keep buying 364-day policies?
They could. They could buy, and they'd have to go through underwriting again. But an insurer cannot renew it. But yes, it can always be gamed. Everyone's going to find a way to game everything.
So I could form an association.
No, we won't let you. That would no. We'll disapprove that one.
Conflict of interest.
Of course, maybe under the new federal laws, they'll let you form an association. We'll have to live with it.
Did you say, Tangi, there is a model that's been published for this?
No, they're going to start working on one. And, there's a lot of disagreement amongst the states on what those types of plans should look like. I do know that Denigan has an idea of what he feels like it should look like. So that might be a conversation you want to have with him.
I think there was even one state who said that they wanted to make them a 3-month duration policy.
3 months.
Great. Turning to your 2018 cleanup bill, or whatever you refer to it, your bill, anything surprises or any concerns we should be aware of?
It is, I think, truly a cleanup bill this year. I don't have any big surprises, at least coming out from life or health insurance. Brett, do you have anything in there?
Yeah, most of the bill there's some minor changes to the definition section, so, that's 60 pages right
Half
there.
the bill.
And then just minor tweaks from Nancy and her team with just like a word change here and there.
It truly is cleanup items.
It's really boring.
Brett, are you gonna do your synopsis of it again?
Yeah, I usually do that a little closer to when the session starts, but yeah, maybe I should do it right now because it'd be so easy.
The bill's on our website.
Yeah, the bill's out.
It passed out as business and labor interim.
And I'd be happy to send you kind of the high-level talking points about the bill if that'd be helpful.
Very helpful.
At this point.
If you could send that over to Michael, we'll distribute that. Very helpful. That synopsis is
It's informal.
very, but it's what Dunnigan, I assumed, was using when he discussed it.
It's similar to what the commissioner relied on when
Right.
the commissioner presented it.
Okay. That'd be great, and, we really use that. We really appreciate it. We post it on our website and everything.
I'm glad to hear, because I hate doing that.
Well,
I heard.
it's
painful but valuable.
Well, it's one of those things you just gotta focus on, and it's hard to just do that. But yeah, once it's done, it's a great resource for us
It
as
is.
well.
It's a great resource for us, so thank you.
So we had our education conference a week or so ago. We talked about the high cost of prescription drugs, and Representative Thurston presented by video since he was out of state unexpectedly and talked about his importation bill. Is the department likely to take a position? Are you familiar with the general concept of that bill?
So I've been participating with that work group. I don't see that we would necessarily support it. I think we'll remain neutral on it. But we are following and aware of the activity and participating in those discussions.
So when Kelly mentioned the full employment for lobbyists, this bill is another one that will fit that category. Pharma is very active, we understand.
Arma's gonna love that one.
Any other follow-up from our education conference, Kelly, that you'd like to make?
No, I just think it was a well-attended conference, and Sunshine presented and did an excellent job, just an excellent job. If the department would like a copy of those presentations, we'd be happy to send them to you, because some good data. In both presentations are some good data, but Sunshine's PowerPoint especially, I think, really gave a nice overview of the challenges that are being faced in this area, and it was well received by those who participated. So
I would love to get a copy of this, so thank you.
So Sunshine, I know there were some emails exchanged about how public you were able to make your AHIP presentation. Is there any restriction on us sharing it with the department or their use of your slides?
No, we'd be happy to share it with them, and feel free to call me at 1 a.m. if you ever want to talk about drug prices. It's my favorite subject.
So I think what Sunshine is saying is she is very invested, and if you start out drug prices, she could care less when you call. She's wide awake. I'm in. Is that a fair characterization, Sunshine?
Yeah, and actually, Jacob Sundberg's data was super helpful. Prescription drug trend in the individual market in Utah is 20% increase from last year. So, huge numbers.
So thank you. I certainly echo Kelly's comments. We really appreciate your support of the conference, Sunshine. So other items from the department that you wanted to cover today?
I don't think we have any.
Seeing none. Any from anyone on the phone? Any from any here at the room? I think it's time then for a motion to adjourn.
Wait, we have a date.
Okay, Michael, I'm too far away, so she couldn't kick me.
Sorry. Normally it would have been on the, what day is that? Wait, I gotta get in the right calendar.
Like a lot of times we've done that earlier in January.
Right, it'd be the Wednesday, the week that the legislature starts. So typically we've pushed it back a week or two into the early part of January. So y'all choose.
So you're proposing earlier in January than the third week?
Typically we've done that, because once the session starts.
the fourth week, we could do it the third week. The legislature starts on the 22nd.
Right.
So I
normally
think
we would
if we could do it on the 17th,
The 17th looks like it will work.
does that work for everybody here?
Any problem January 17th at 10 a.m.? Anyone on the phone?
Nope, no problem.
I will be in Nebraska that day, but certainly don't let me hold it up. I can, hopefully Frank Howe can participate in my stead.
We certainly wouldn't want you to interfere at all with you being in Nebraska in January. I mean, I can't, that sounds wonderful. I'm glad it's you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate the support.
All right, so despite our hug to Mark for having to be in Nebraska on January 17th, I think we're a go on that date. Anything else, Michael?
No, that's it for me.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Doug, for hauling me out to Baldwin. Tonight's work.
Andy, do I need to
I appreciate
let Bill know?
it.